Okay, in this video we're going to talk about Unit 2, Objective 7, that's differentiating natural log. The rule for natural log is going to take the chain rule into account already. So even though we're going to be using the chain rule on our natural logs, we don't really have to think about using our chain rule for our natural logs. It's going to happen automatically. So how this rule looks is if we are taking the derivative of natural log of some thing that we're going to call u. So instead of doing this in terms of x, we're going to do it in terms of u. And off to the side here, we'll say that u is a function of x. So the derivative of the natural log of u is simply going to be u prime divided by u. So that u prime that we have up there is taking the chain rule into account for us. So that u prime is when we take the derivative of the inside part of our chain rule. So that's going to take care of that for us. We don't really need to think about natural log and chain rule at the same time. So an example of what we might see with our natural log is natural log of 3x squared plus 7, we'll say that's f of x. So to find f prime of x, if we look at our rule, it says natural log of u. Here we have natural log of 3x squared plus 7. So we need to think of 3x squared plus 7 as u. So when we get to our u prime, we know that u prime over here would be 6x. So our derivative of natural log of 3x squared plus 7 is going to be u prime, which we just said was 6x, divided by u, which we called 3x squared plus 7. That's your natural log rule. Now there's one thing that we need to be careful about that AP really likes to do with natural log, and that is to take advantage of natural logs and e. So if we have a function that looks like this, f of x is the natural log of e to the, 4x to the third plus 7x squared power. You might be looking at that and saying, well, I can't take that derivative right now because I don't know my e derivative rules. And the way that we're looking at it right now, u would be equal to e to the 4x cubed plus 7x squared power. And we don't know how to take that derivative right now. But we need to remember what we learned in pre-cal. Whenever we take the natural log of e, those are going to undo each other. So we can simplify this function, and say that f of x is simply 4x to the third plus 7x squared, and that is just your simple power rule problem. And we'll get 12x squared plus 14x. So always look for places where your natural log and your e are going to be able to cancel out, and that'll make your problems really, really easy. Okay, instead of making two real short videos, we'll kind of combine these into one medium. So we're going to look at Unit 2, Objective 8, which is the derivative of e. Much like your natural log rule, your rule for e is going to take your chain rule into account. So we're going to be using chain rule, but we don't really have to think about it. So our derivative of e says if we have e to the u power, and again u is a function of x, so if we have e to the u power and we're taking the derivative, u prime e to the u is going to be our rule. So we take the derivative of our exponent and we multiply it by the function that we started with. So what this might look like is if we have f of x equals e to the sine x plus 7x cubed power. Our u in this case, since we're doing e to the u, would be sine of x plus 7x to the third. So u prime would be cosine of x plus 21x squared. So there's our u prime. So when we go to take our derivative, and we want u prime e to the u, we simply just take the u prime we found, cosine of x plus 21x squared, and we multiply it by our original function, e to the sine of x plus 7x cubed. Now, what I have on the screen right now is not correct. I wanted to take a moment here to give you guys a little bit of a heads up, a very, very common mistake that I've seen on some quizzes and I expect to continue to see, is looking at what we have on the screen right now. A lot of people are saying that that is going to be the correct answer, but that's not, because all I'm seeing right now is we're multiplying this 21x cubed by the e to the sine x plus 7x cubed. A lot of people are also putting parentheses around functions like that, and that still just says the 21x squared times the sine x, or times e to the sine x plus 7x cubed. What we need to do is make sure we have parentheses around the term, our u prime, to make sure that we're multiplying all of our u prime, the cosine x and the 21x squared, by the e to the sine x plus 7x. So make sure you're putting parentheses around stuff that you're multiplying, or else AP is not going to count it as correct. Because if you don't have those parentheses, again, that 21x squared is the only thing you're multiplying, not the entire u prime. I want to look at one more example, and it's similar to the last one we did with natural log. It's a way that AP can be sneaky. If we have something like e to the natural log of x cosine x, we could think about it and say, alright, u is the natural log of x cosine x, and then we could try to figure out what u prime is from there. Or what we can do instead is remember again from our pre-cal that e to the natural log of whatever power, the e and the natural log are going to cancel each other out. And we're left with something like that, where f of x is equal to x cosine x. So if we're faced with x cosine x, we have product rule. We have an x times a cosine x. So when we go to take our derivative, we would say the derivative of the red one is just 1 times the blue one staying the same, plus the first one, the red one, stays the same, times the derivative of the second one. So we're looking at just cosine x minus x sine x for our answer. So keep in mind that AP will like to hide easy problems within natural logs and e's when our e's and natural logs cancel out. So that'll do it for this video, and